We're all searching for it, or people. The ones you can call when you're at the end of your rope. The ones you ask for advice in a difficult stage or deciding on which jeans to buy. The ones who you share dreams and hopes with, who get you to the gym and love your kids like their own. Motherhood was never meant to be a solitary role, and now it doesn't need to be. Here we discuss everything from our favorite kidisms to mental wellness to our best mom hacks and more. Mamas are world changers, and it's time to stop bearing that responsibility alone. So whether you're driving carpool, rocking a sleeping baby, or doing dishes, we're here for you. Welcome to the village.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Village Podcast. I'm your host, Missy Allred. Today, we are going to be talking about our stress responses and the 4 different responses that we can go into, kind of what they look like, and why they matter. So, our stress response this is what I mean when we talk about nervous system regulation. This is fight or flight, stress response. It's all talking about the same thing. So what happens is, I'll just give a quick recap. If you want like a deeper dive, go back to episodes, I think it's 2 and 3. I really deep dive into your nervous system, how it works, everything. But just kind of as a quick reminder, if we decide that something is stressful, if our brain says, we're not safe, we go into a stress response. So this could be your child falls and gets hurt. This could be public speaking. This could be chased by a mountain lion. This could be posting something to Instagram that you're nervous about. This could be the noise level of your home or the toys sitting out around the house or dishes piled in the sink. It doesn't really matter what it is. It only matters that our brain has deemed it as stressful or unsafe in some way. And we could really go into all of that, where sometimes it's very helpful, like you saw in like the example of your child being hurt or actually being in physical danger yourself. You actually need to run from something. But most of the time, it's not super helpful. But our brain has deemed that as unsafe, and so it responds in the same way as those actually real emergency stressful situations. So we want to rework on rewiring our brains so that we are not so triggered by messes or triggered by the noise of our kids playing or whatever it is that is stressful to you but is not actually helpful and being deemed as unsafe. We definitely want to rework on rewiring our brain. But first, we have to actually get out of that stress response. We have to calm our brains and our bodies back down, because again, if you remember back to those first few episodes, we talked about how one of the biggest things that happens, one of the most important pieces of this stress response, is that our prefrontal cortex shuts down. This is the part of our brain that is in charge of problem solving, critical thinking, thinking through consequences, just that rational, higher order human thinking. This goes offline because when your child is hurt, you don't have time to sit and think through every single different option that there is available. You just have to act immediately. So this is really good, again, until it's not. So this is why we respond to our kids by yelling or by shutting down, and we'll talk more about those responses in a minute. But this is why, is because our brain just reacts instead of slowing down and consciously responding. So we have to calm our brain so we can then use that higher order thinking and start rewiring our brain, because the more we do the same thing, the stronger the connection in our brain. So the more that you yell at your kids when they're fighting or when they're playing too loud or whatever it is, whatever your response is, the more you do that, the stronger that connection in your brain is. So what we need to do is we need to start rewiring it, teach it something new, and then repeat that. So that is now the stronger connection, where the yelling or the shutting down or whatever your old response was becomes less and less frequent. And think about a road that has been neglected. If no one's using it, it's going to break down and eventually be unusable. That's what we want in your brain. These responses that aren't helpful, we want to learn a new path, have that be the thing that we consciously keep choosing over and over, and eventually that will be our automatic response. And the old response will become so neglected that it's not really used anymore. So, our 4 stress responses. The first is fight. This one is pretty self-explanatory. So I'm kind of going to use all of these in the context of life as a mom. So fight, that response is going to look like you might be shaking, like you're just you have so much built up anger or stress or whatever emotion you're feeling. There's so much built up that your body just shakes. This might be yelling at your kids. This might be wanting to grab them. So like if your kids are fighting, instead of the calm mom who would gently pull them aside, you grab them and move them out of the way. And again, there's definitely a level of like, okay, sometimes my boys will sit and just wail on each other. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't remember doing that as a kid. I don't know if it's just a boy thing, but my kids do that all the time. And sometimes I'm like, no, we are breaking this up and I do need to physically remove them. But sometimes it's unnecessary. So wanting to grab them, just feeling physically out of control. You don't feel like, it's almost like you're watching yourself do this, where you know rationally that you need to respond in a different way, and you can't seem to do it. Your body just reacts. This is my go-to response with my kids. And I'm definitely working on it. But with my kids, this is my go-to. It's what it's what my body just does. And I have to very consciously work on changing that. And we're getting there. These other responses are, for me, what I kind of see in other areas of my life. But with my kids, this is my go-to, is I go to fight. And another thing to note here is that this connection in my brain of, okay, my kids do something, I go into fight. Remember that our brain goes to a stress response out of safety. And so my brain has decided that fight is the safest way to handle this situation. So if this is also your response and you're like, oh, I'm such a terrible mom, please know that you are not a terrible mom. It's your brain trying to protect you in the best way it knows how. And we're going to learn a different way. It's decided through probably years of practice of this connection being built up stronger and stronger, that fight is the way to go. Or as we'll see with these other ones, that maybe it's going to decide flight or freeze or whatever is going to be the best course of action to keep you the safest. That's all it means. And we can change that after we've come back to calm, but we also first have to recognize, what response am I going to? So fight. Number 2 is flight. Flight is characterized by avoidance. We are avoiding the situation. So if you think back to like an actual physical, real emergency, let's say being chased by a bear, fight, you're going to fight the bear. Flight, you're just going to run away. You're running away from the problem. You're trying to avoid it. And obviously in the case of like a bear, that might be the best course of action, you know? In motherhood, not so much. In just day-to-day life, we're avoiding the problem. We're not addressing it, which means the problem never gets solved. So flight often is going to look like excessive screen time for you or for your kids. For you, screen time usually means numbing. You might even see this with TV shows. You'll sit and watch TV shows. You'll put your kids in front of the TV because it just keeps them entertained longer. And please do not mistake this as I think screen time is bad, because I so do not. But the purpose behind it matters. If you are just trying to avoid breakouts of tension and craziness, and so that is your go-to response every day for hours on end, yeah, I'd say screen time is a little bit of a problem. The intention totally matters. But excessive screen time, if you're turning to your phone and you realize it's been 15 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 hours that you've sat scrolling and you're like, what on earth just happened? This is a very good sign that your body is saying that you are in stress, and it is numbing. It is avoiding whatever is uncomfortable that you're trying not to feel. Another way you might see this is eating when you're not hungry. Again, it's that buffer, it's the numbing. This may not even be sugar. It might be healthy food, but if you're eating just because you're bored or just because you're stressed out by something, it's a good indicator that you're in a stress response, that you're in flight. Another thing you might see, and this is often where I find myself too, I'm definitely a scroller and a rage cleaner. When I am super stressed out about something, I go to rage clean. And my husband knows if he comes home and I'm like frantically cleaning the house and have a total RBF face, that I need to take some time to calm down. Sometimes I feel like that can be kind of helpful because I can get some energy out and kind of come back to a calmer place, and, at least I'm being kind of productive. But I also am usually trying to avoid the uncomfortable emotion that I am actually experiencing that is putting me into the stress response. So it's still an avoidance tactic, even if it's somewhat helpful. So there's flight. Number 3 is freeze. And a freeze response is really just what it sounds like. You freeze, you don't move, you totally clam up. This isn't super common, I would say, as a mom, at least from everything I've seen and talked to people about. However, functional freeze is very common. And that looks like exhaustion, but staying up late. A lot of these are going to be opposites of each other. Like it doesn't really make sense that you would act one way but be feeling another. So it's 2 a.m. and you have been tired for 4 or 5 hours at this point, and yet you're still up because you feel like it's the only time you get to yourself, and so you just want it to last as long as possible, but you know that then leads to more exhaustion. That's an example of this functional freeze. This also might look like completing necessities. You still are taking care of your kids, you're still getting things done, but mentally you are completely checked out. You are not there. Like you are just going through the motions at this point. Another example would be taking a long time to respond to messages. And I don't mean the people, I need all of my all of my notifications away. And so I'm usually very consistent at checking my messages, usually very consistent at going through my emails so that I have no notifications. I don't even mean the people that have like 247,000 emails. But when you are consistently avoiding messages, that's where I would where usually you're not, that's where it's a little bit more of a red flag. Taking a long time to dress after showering is also, like if you just sit in your towel for a while, that's another sign of this freeze response. There's a whole bunch I could say here. I want to tread carefully here because I think that functional freeze and depression can look very similar. Having experienced both, sometimes I think I'm falling back into a bad place mentally. Not that being in a stress response is necessarily a good place, but it's a place I can get out of. When it is true clinical depression, it is possible, but very difficult to get out by yourself. So if you are experiencing these things, please take the time to be introspective and decide if this is something you need to go get clinical help with, or if this is something that you can get out of on your own, because they do look very similar. And if it is something clinical, it often starts with something like this. You're in this functional freeze space for so long that it becomes something deeper. So if you're kind of in the beginning stages of this, I would probably lean towards it being functional freeze, and to be wary of that and get out now. Get some help and get out of this stress response so that it doesn't become something more. All right, last one is the fawn response. This is one that likely you probably haven't heard of, but I would say is very common, especially among not just women, but particularly mothers. Fawn is basically avoiding your own needs and taking care of everyone else out of more appeasement than anything else. So, placing everybody else's needs above your own. You usually have a difficult time not just expressing your needs and wants, saying what you actually need, that you might need help, or that you want something. So this might be your husband asks you what you want for dinner. You know, where do you want to go out on date night? And you say, "Oh, I don't know, anything's fine," but actually you do have opinion, but you don't want to express it because everybody else's needs and wants are more important than yours. So it's not just about difficulty expressing these needs and wants, but you usually have a difficult time even knowing what your needs and wants are. So if your husband asks you where we're going to dinner and you say, "I don't know," deep down you do know, but you have a hard time even thinking of anything. You have a hard time knowing what you actually want. Sometimes it takes just like, okay, does Chinese sound good? Does Mexican sound good? Does Italian sound good? Like leading questions to get you to figure that out. But you have a hard time coming up with what you need or want. If someone says, "Do you need help?" and in your head you're like, "Yes, I do, but I have no idea what." I have no idea what to say. I don't know what anyone could actually do, but I know I could use some help in some way. This is a very good sign of this fawn response. Another one here is difficulty setting and keeping boundaries with anyone, including yourself. Being able to say no is definitely a big sign here. If you're having a hard time saying no and then you feel overworked, stretched thin, that's a boundary within yourself that you're having a hard time saying, "This is my boundary. This is when I say no," and actually doing it. So that's the fawn response. So just as a quick recap, first we have the fight response, pretty self-explanatory. Flight, you're avoiding. This usually looks like numbing in some way with Instagram or shows or even books, food, rage cleaning. Number 3 is freeze, and this is more common in our functional freeze state. So you're exhausted, but you stay up really late. You're kind of mentally checked out, even though you're doing all the things you need to do to take care of your house, take care of your kids, but you're not really ever present. Taking a long time to respond to things or to get dressed after showering. And then number 4 is fawn, and this is our appeasement. Everybody else's needs are more important than my own, and you've shoved your needs so far down that it's really hard to even know what they are. Probably you have found yourself in at least one, if not all, of these. Remember again that this is your body trying to take care of you. This is your brain trying to take care of you to keep you safe. There is nothing wrong with you. This means your brain is working just the way it should, even if it's not actually helpful. And that's the part that we want to focus on is this helping me? this response in our body and our brain is to keep us safe, but our world is so different now than it was 200 years ago, 500 years ago, where safety was a bigger issue more of the time. And so our brain still finds ways that it thinks we are not safe, that we may actually be, but it's still responding in the same way. So is this actually helping? Where are you finding yourself? Just starting with, okay, what is my stress response? What is my go-to in most situations or in situations with my kids? Like I said, I'm more of a fight with my kids, but kind of everywhere else, I see bits of the other three. So just starting to recognize, ooh, I am in a stress response. What is going on? What is it that I'm responding to? What is the thing that is making me feel unsafe, that is causing me this stress? Just start being introspective and, okay, what is going on? Because obviously this is my stress response. So what is it that is stressing me out? So we want to learn to not just get out of these stress responses, but stay out, to increase our capacity, increase our battery, so that we're not falling back into those so often, where it's going to happen because that is how our body works and it's working properly. And sometimes when it's a real emergency, we absolutely want our stress response to kick in to keep us safe, to keep our kids safe, depending on the situation. But most of the time, we want to extend the time that we are in a rested, rational, happy state. So we want to get out, we want to stay out, and then we want to start rewiring our brains so that these stressors, again, aren't so stressful. But then because we're staying out of our stress responses often, we have more energy and capacity to do what we need and want to do. When you have this, you can be more of the loving, patient, present, playful, fun, whatever kind of mom you want to be. You have more of a capacity to do that when you're not constantly in stress. You can deepen your connection with your sweet family because you're not constantly in stress. You have the mental space to do that when your mind isn't so focused on all the things that are stressing you out. And I want this for you. And this is why I created the reset. This program is everything I learned in my own journey, from delaying my day for hours. I used to wake up so late and then spend hours in my bed just because it would shorten the time I had to do my day, to be a mom, because I was just so beyond stressed out. I was constantly angry and on edge. And although I still find myself doing those things every once in a while, it's so much more of a rarity than it used to be. I am so much more rested. I'm so much more motivated. I truly love being a mom. Most days, I wake up so excited to spend time with my kids. I wake up happy and ready and looking forward to the day ahead, where that used to be the complete opposite. As much as I loved my kids, my job as a caregiver and a homemaker were sucking me dry. I felt like I had nothing left to give. And it's not like that anymore. I love being a mom. I love my job. I love my job. And I'm so excited that I get to spend time with my kids every day, at least most days, because I also am human and I definitely have days where I still just want to lay in bed. That's totally normal. That doesn't make me any less of a good mom. I can still be a good mom and still have harder days, tired days. But mostly, I have really good days with some hard moments in there. But I handle those hard moments so much better. I want to teach you how to get here. And that's what the reset is for. In just 5 to 10 minutes a day, you will be able to start doing these things to get out of that stress response, to expand your capacity to stay in a more restful state and start rewiring your brain. I know your time is so valuable, and so that's why I've kept it in a way where you can do it very quickly, just little moments of your day, and still make a huge difference. If you are interested, the doors are open right now. They close Saturday and we start on Monday. There is a link in the show notes to join. I seriously would love, love, love to have you in there. Last thing is my magic in the mundane moment, which I realized I totally forgot to do in the last episode. I realized like the next day that I never actually put it in. So it's been a while, but I took my boys to swim lessons today. They go every week and it has just been so cool. They've been going for 5 weeks and I am truly blown away by how much better they've gotten. It's just so cool to see their hard work. And I love that I get to cheer my kids on with something that they love. Just, I don't know, just the things I always dreamed of. Like my mom and my dad too was so good at coming to everything and always cheering me on in everything I did. And I always knew like that's how I wanted to be as a mom, is I wanted to have my kids be in extracurriculars and be able to go and cheer them on, and just felt like a full circle moment. I don't know, when you can just pause and realize that in so many ways you are living out the life you dreamed of. I always dreamed about being a mom as a kid, and sometimes I just have those pinch me moments that are, this is what I wanted and I have it, and how cool is that? I just feel so grateful. I heard something recently that said that presence is the feeling of knowing that you will, like, if you can think of the moment you're in as, this is the first time I've ever seen this, and this is the last time I will ever see this, that feeling of both of those perspectives combined, that's presence. And I love that. And the more I've been aware of that, the more of these magical little moments in everyday life I've been able to have. So if you've struggled a little bit with being present, try that perspective, even if it's just once a day and you can have this fully present moment. And I just think you'll have more of these magical moments, which is so fun. Makes these, like everyone says, the days are long, but the years are short, which is so true. It makes these long days feel a little bit easier, less burdensome, lighter, more fun, which I think we all could use a little more of as a mom. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining me on this week's episode. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, so message me on Instagram at @themissy_allred. There is always room in our village, so if you enjoyed it, will you please send it to a friend or leave a rating and review? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you for being here. I'll talk to you next week.